They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking...
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rafal, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
All right, and we are back. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down to Security Rabbit Hole to part 2 of the podcast with Howard Holton here. Just a refresher, if you're catching up from last week, or if you found this episode without the previous episode, part 1, we've been talking about the challenges of the cybersecurity market, and we started talking, and I guess we left the previous episode on the point that that like the market is super saturated with a bunch of competitors that can't easily distinguish from each other. They really can't identify why they're different, why they're better, what's the differentiator. And I want to pick that up. James, you said something interesting in off air. Go ahead and repeat it because I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think just with the indistinguishable, it's interesting also to see how many vendors are using the same tech under the hood, like same engine. Like you go out and look at SaaS or DaaS vendors, and you're like, oh, well, what are you using for your rules engine and all that? And you come to find out like half of them are using the same open source tooling that sits out there, right? And they've just added a little bit more on top. So it's like, who can come up with the coolest features above and beyond what you could have just gone out and got for free anyway and built yourself. So it's interesting to see that. I think a lot of people don't realize how many are using that same tech, right? Like you're getting the same scanner. You're just getting, some additional features on top. And what are those?
Yeah, I mean, I like the first episode, we spent a lot of time on the business side of kind of cyber. One of the things that I think is interesting that's kind of brought us here is how little the enterprise is willing to do the basics.
Oh God!
Right? I think.
All right, you went there.
Well, okay, so that's a whole nother ball game.
Unfortunately, that's why these vendors exist, though, isn't it? Like we keep thinking there's a thing we can buy to solve a problem when the reality is we just need to accept the J curve of solving the problem operationally.
Yeah.
But operationally means you have to actually do stuff. It's much easier just to point a product at it.
Well, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it means the business has to do stuff, right? Like why does the CEO's secretary have admin rights?
Right.
Well, that's layer 8. Like now we're getting to layer 8 stuff. Right? So,
yeah, exactly. The secret layer 8 and 9 of the OSI model, leadership and budget.
And politics.
Yeah, and politics. Well, yeah. But the reality is, like, I think that's why the market gets to where it is. I've bought all the things, like I've checked all the boxes that are available. My problem's still not solved. Can I have some more checkboxes that I can check, please?
Yeah.
Well, it goes to the fact that most of the solutions don't actually solve the problem. It solves maybe a piece of a problem, but what solution actually leads to solving the actual problem?
Okay, so hold up, Howard. I have a feeling I know where you're going with this, but let me say something real quick because James, you just touched on a piece of selling and the vendor lore that I find particularly thorny. I don't believe most vendors that are selling you solutions understand what solution they're selling you because it's not a solution. Building solutions is hard. Selling features is easy.
I mean, I spend so one of the reasons I became an analyst was I used to spend a lot of time talking to sales teams about how to sell me because they'd come into my office and they'd be like, all right, Howard, we got this great C-level presentation for you. We know CIOs don't want to hear about speeds and feeds, so we're going to mix it up for you. We're going to be really CEO focused, and we're going to give you, feeds and speeds instead. No speeds and feeds, it's just feeds and speeds, right? And I'd go, guys, like, I don't care about any of the things you talked about. I pay people to care about those things. I have to assume if you got into my office, your feature set is liked by my analysts, is liked by my engineers, is liked by my architects. Tell me about how you're going to make my life better by understanding what my job is. And my job has nothing to do with the buttons that you get to push inside a platform. Has nothing to do with the capabilities of your platform. None. My job has nothing to do with it whatsoever. Because if I tell the board, we're not doing that, the board goes, okay, cool, why not? That's where my job starts.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and look, and I think to kind of put a finer point on the topic we ended on part one of this, is that if you look carefully beyond the flowery language, the color schemes and the pretty pictures and all that, at any given space, that any given market segment, whether it's endpoint, whether it's SIM, whether it's network security, whatever, if you could easily, which you can't do, by the way, I've tried, if you could easily pull out the feature set of these things, like what is it? What are the buttons, knobs? Like, what are the cool things? And then you put that in front of, took the names off of that and put that in front of all of them and say, identify yours. Most of them can't do that. How do I know this? Because back when I worked as a kind of a pseudo analyst running advisory at Optiv, like we did this with RSA, I think 2 years running, where we went to the booths, gathered up a bunch of marketing material on day one, went back to the hotel, like extracted the features, took all the marketing language. You go, all right, here's a set of 4 columns. Which column is your company? Everybody got it wrong.
Sure. I mean, in fairness, the people at the booth, like if the company's more than $100 million, the people at the booth probably don't even work for the company; they're contractors. You know what I mean? Or they're BDRs. You know. But
which is an entire problem in its own.
Oh yeah. So I did a workshop for a company, and we call it a differentiation workshop, where my goal is to find out what makes your company interesting that someone would want to buy. Like, what is your differentiation, right? It's kind of the Simon Sinek start with why sort of thing. And so I walk into the room, and they have this like 16-foot whiteboard, and they have written all their differentiators on the board, which is just a bunch of features and a bunch of like marketing words.
Yes.
And so I look at it, and I drop in, and then we kind of pause. You know, we take a break, and I go, okay, so do you guys want to address the whiteboard? And they go, yeah, go for it. I said, are you sure you want me to address the whiteboard? And they're like, we know you. That's exactly why we wrote it up there. And I just took a magic marker, and I just went, nope, 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 nope. All right, there's 3. They wrote 38 up. There were 3 left. I said, there's 3 left. Let's dig into those. And they started talking about the first one. I went, nope. All right, let's talk about these other 2. And there was one thing on the board that I spent an hour trying to disassemble because it was interesting and it was unique. Like, guys, a differentiator has to differentiate. It's not a collection of sockets that you've thrown into a toolbox. Everyone has sockets. No one has a 10 millimeter, that's a different story. But everyone has a full set of sockets. You know what I mean? So saying you have a full set of sockets, but, you know, we've taken the lettering and made it green. Sorry, not differentiated.
That's right. Yeah, and the part that used to drive me nuts and still does is I forget who said this, but it's somebody. My old boss, Jim. You knew Paul Muller when I used to work for him. Paul would say these are useless words. Things like better, faster, bigger, more. We are 10 times faster. You're like, then what? What does that mean? Right? Like we are more efficient. You're like, what? Right? So, but when you come down to it, you've got 4 EDR vendors that effectively are solving. If you're listening to the podcast, you're not seeing me do air quotes, but they're solving the same problem: is bad actors trying to do bad things on your computer. Now, there's 1,000, maybe more, different ways to address that issue. But if you're going to tell me you have a solution, come prepared, because I'm going to pick that apart, because you actually have to solve the problem, not just address it. And I think there's a huge chasm the size of the Grand Canyon. And on one side is we're solving the problem. The other side is we're addressing the problem. And in the middle are dead bodies of the people that have tried to cross that chasm and not realize how wide it was.
Ooh, yeah, but what is the problem that you're solving? Is the problem that you're solving securing the endpoint, or is the problem that you're solving the air cover to say we've done our due diligence and best effort in securing the endpoint? It's two very, very different things.
Agreed.
Right.
And I think that's where like the standard vendor slide deck, which is like, here's who we are, here's our founders and what, what the IDF unit they work for. Here's a bunch of features. Here's our logos. Please, can we get a PO? Like, that's the standard slide deck for every vendor. None of them that I've read in the last several years actually says, here's the problem that we have identified. Here's how we are solving that problem, right? And because the challenge there, I think, from a marketer's perspective, and I've tried this, and I know it's hard, is you have to come up with a problem that enough people have that they can identify with, that is compelling enough for them to buy. And as a marketer, you want to broaden that out as much as possible. The problem is when you broaden it out, it gets diluted. And there's a point where, yes, now you've included the everyone has this problem, but the problem is unidentifiable.
Well, there's also no specificity in solving it. Like, the problem becomes so broad that it is in fact impossible to solve. So you're also no longer solving it, right? You kind of lose the thread on where you started with the whole thing as you continue to broaden. So you have a TAM, right? And I think a lot of that comes from, the conversation we were having before, right? It comes from the financial side. It comes from, for some amount of time, we're going to operate at a loss as a company while we attempt to grow. And we're going to subsist off a continual series of funding rounds. Well, in order to continue to get the funding, my TAM has to continue to grow so that share price that they're paying, right, is less than the future value of that share price. Well, TAM is one of the best ways to kind of show what your company valuation could eventually be. And so I think too many companies, what they show to the board is the same thing they show to a customer, which is not really what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. This gets us into this sort of endless loop of, in order to be relevant, you have to differentiate down to something specific. But in order to grow, you have to now broaden that out further and further and further and further until you become non-specific, and then you just become this generic thing.
I mean, I would argue
that's where you get to the point where everything is indistinguishable, because you started off with this little niche, right, of I'm going to do this, and it's like, but we got to, all right, well, let me add project management to this. Let me add these other pieces that might not even be relevant, that a lot of the buyers are like, why don't you just stick to what you know versus expanding this out? But right, they get pushed to start being like, oh, well, we've got this and we've got this. And when you talk to them, then you start asking questions like, all right, but I don't need another procurement piece for this office in the org. Like, they don't want to log into 5 different apps. And it's great that you guys are all providing this functionality, but we want one. I don't want one for this, and one for that. Right. So they keep expanding that out. So I think that also tends to lead towards these companies that just have all these same features, because they all pick the same ones to then implement once they get past their initial offering.
It is also the dynamic of, we've skipped a stone on this call and talked about in other podcasts, but the role of the investors in the investing community for that business and steering these types of things, right? So, for example, is you need to increase your TAM, you need to increase your diversity, and damn the torpedoes, we're going to provide we want you to buy a full suite of capability. Yeah. And the people behind the scenes are, maybe the founders or originators of the technology and their initial vision. They may know, like, where James is heading is, well, now that you do 17 things, I really liked you only for the first 3, and I already got stuff working pretty good for 15 over here. And so now you start working yourself out of the market. But I'm sure, Howard, you see many, many times, as well as Raph and James, is that investors or, VCs or whoever has got the money will say, I think we really should do this. And you're not in a situation where you can argue that, right? You sort of have to say, well, that's how they're going to interpret it. You can argue. Now,
I've been very successful arguing
tilt your head, Howard.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Hey.
I've been very successful arguing it, but you have to be able to do it, and you have to be able to do it in a way that you accomplish what your investor set out to do. And that comes back to have you ever sat in the seat of the person signing the check, or have you sat in the seat of the person using the tool? Very different seats, right? And so if you've not sat in the seat of the person signing the check, when someone who's giving you a check says, this is what I want you to do, you kind of go, well, that makes logical sense. That is totally reasonable. So I'm going to go do that. It doesn't sound like a terrible idea. It sounds like it's something outside of your experience. And so you rely on somebody that has experience. But they've never sat in that seat either. They've sat in the seat of someone signing a check, but not that check. And that's where the delta is that I see over and over again, right? Is these companies, they don't understand why someone would buy that particular thing. They just know someone does buy that thing, and if I was the SA using it, I'd be happier than what I used before.
Well, that's why those logo slides appear so often, right? Like, here's our other customers, and you want to, having been in that group, you're like, you always want to have a couple logos of companies that look like or smell like or sound like the ones that you're going to go visit to try to sell to, because there's always that familiarity. Like, oh well, Acme here is one of my competitors. Oh, they use your product. All right, I guess that makes it relevant to me. Anyway, so listen, I feel like we'd be remiss, Howard, if we didn't go hit that pivot that you talked about before we hit recording, and that is ready to drink AI. Talk to me about what the I don't know, what day zero of AI and onward has meant, not from just security, but like the area around it and the problems from a cyber that we're trying to solve. Talk to me about AI and as it relates to the cyber market.
Sure. So let's just start with a question for the audience, and you guys are welcome to answer it. Have you ever worked in an organization? Damn it.
Oh no, he fell off.
That is amazing.
We've had some timing coincidences before, but boy, howdy, that's a good one.
Man.
I guess
so this is going to
added AI. It heard it. He was going to talk about it. It was like, not today, sir. Not today.
No, sir.
Right?
You're off.
He's probably already, he's still going through it too. He doesn't even realize he's just.
Oh yeah.
Laying it all out
He's
there.
probably just laying down some awesome stuff right now.
Yeah, he'll come back in a second, and I'll have to remind him. All right, start again.
I'm actually. I hope the audience is agreeing with me. I'm really, really interested in what the next things are going to say.
I know. I'm just waiting here. Just like I've got the Jeopardy music playing in my head.
Yeah, right.
Come on, Howard. Where are you?
Well, in our little show chat, I've been sort of pounding away with James on AI, my views on that kind of stuff. So he doesn't. We don't need to hear that. That's like. So I'm curious. His question.
All right. We got Howard back. Welcome back.
Jesus. I'm sorry about that, guys. I came into the office just to avoid any potential home disruption,
Ta-da!
All right. I can jump right back into the question if you want.
Yeah, no, go. We're still rolling, so let's hear it.
All right.
We figured the AI just disconnected you.
Yeah. I think the AI heard I was going to say bad things and dropped me. All right, so question for everybody, and you guys should answer it too. How many times have you worked for an organization that nailed all of the cybersecurity basics? No over-provisioned accounts, excellent ACLs, like everything, right? Focus on reducing attack surface, right? Focus on reducing blast radius. It's never happened to me, and I've been the CISO many times.
I was going to say, I'm assuming you're joking, because I've never, like that, never in the history of ever has happened. Right.
Okay, So I've never been to a company that actually nailed it. I've never been to a black site that nailed it. You know what I mean? Like ever. The reality is business gets involved. Good, bad, or indifferent, business gets involved. We can't do that because we can't afford that friction. We can't afford that slowdown, whatever. Security is friction, and it's friction on purpose, and it needs to be friction. We need to do what we can as professionals to reduce the friction. But Here's the problem. Every time we're told no, it's because we can't move that slow. We can't take that risk to the business. We need to move faster. We need to ship faster. We need to do more. That's the promise that AI holds. The problem that AI has is, in addition to increasing volume and velocity in a tremendous way, it's also non-deterministic. Right? Humans are mostly deterministic, and services are completely deterministic.
Yeah.
A properly functioning service will always execute its service account actions exactly the same way. The reason we watch them is for when there's a potential account takeover. Right? We don't watch them because we think Microsoft SQL is suddenly going to go sideways. Right? Humans are mostly deterministic because we like routines and we tend to be kind of lazy. We figure out how to do something once and then we do it that way a million times, right? So like Susie in accounting is going to process checks the same way she processes checks. She's not suddenly going to go, well, let's see, maybe I have permissions to 73 things I don't need to get my job done. No, Susie's there to do her job and go home, right? AI's problem is AI is non-deterministic. It will attempt any way it thinks to try to solve a problem, regardless of whether you would expect the same from the human it happens to be impersonating at the time, or the role it happens to be impersonating at the time, right? So that non-deterministic nature means everything we didn't do that was best practice in the past, every time we looked at zero trust and went, this is really hard, I don't want to do this again, AI is going to go, hold my beer, I've got this. And it doesn't have this. That's why we're seeing constant reports of people going, oh crap, I used Claude Code and it just dropped all my production tables. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Right? So forget about the new, like all of the stuff you now have to secure in addition. You have to secure all of the stuff you never secured properly in order for AI not to just exponentially increase the problem.
I'm particularly stuck on when people talk about AI is this whole like we don't know why it did something it did, right? It's not going to explain itself. It's not really going to do this. Like if you ask, for example, the
kind of true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're talking about stock workflows, this is the big thing right now, right this moment, is everybody's talking about how, AI is going to replace your stock. All the people selling you AI stock are telling you AI is going to replace your stock. You don't need your people anymore. Fire everybody. This sounds like, to me, the outsourcing discussion from the late 90s, early 2000s. You don't need to hire level 1 help desk anymore, level 2 help desk. We got this offshore model. Don't worry about it. You just handle the hard problems like they're multi-step, whatever. And it turns out that creates two issues for us. One, it kills the farm team, right? So you don't have the feeder system anymore. So now you have no way to build expertise. I don't know why we're not talking about this.
Okay, who told you? Seriously, who told you? I literally wrote my first book. It's called The Death of Expertise, and it is currently in draft being shared with my team of editors.
That is also the name of the book that one of my previous guests on this podcast, Tom, I forgot your name. I'm sorry. Last name. He is a professor emeritus at the Naval War College and a whole bunch of other places. He wrote Death of Expertise. I had him on the show. Absolutely brilliant.
I'm likely to change the name of the book, but that's what it's like. I've called it this for like a decade as I've been trying to get through it. I'm likely to change the name because I am aware of Tom's book.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of, things with the same name. It's just too confusing. But I haven't come up with another name. But that's what I've been calling this for a decade. So, Tom, if you ever do hear this, buddy, and you see my book is called that, I'm happy to take a recommendation on a different name. It's totally cool.
But like you guys, this isn't like just it's folly. Like we are absolutely cratering the farm system, the feeder system that's supposed to be our, the people that think big. Why are we not talking about this? Just don't worry. Don't have lower level analysts anymore. We're just going to jump straight to the advanced. You're like, wait, how?
Even without AI, though, haven't we been seeing that problem? I think they call them influencers. But
wow,
like how many people come up and they've never done anything, and all of a sudden they're experts in all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I thought we called them consultants.
But that too.
My bad. Yeah. So Tom Nichols is the author for those listening. So we've absolutely been doing it, but it actually does come from kind of the consulting, the Six Sigma, the like ultra efficiency, and this idea that a C-level executive should only be around for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. A C-level executive that's only around for 2 years never gets to see the fruits or damage of their labor.
Well, I lived that at GE. I was there at the tail end of that whole era. And it was Jim's.
We're really tapping into some like deep scars for me.
Yeah, this is some deep scar tissue, because this is like, you're there long enough to understand the mess the previous person left, and just as you start to understand it and start to think about how to solve it, it's time to go. It's like, wait,
or that's engineered, which is
Yeah.
right. It's not
That's
like there was a
even
mess.
worse.
You're going to come in, and because you're the new guy, you're going to change everything. Right.
You're gonna make the mess appear.
You're going to make a new mess.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because
then
you
get
can
out.
solve
Bigger
all
and better than
things.
the previous. But that's kind of where I think we're going. Like, I love the promise. I'm really excited about the promise that more advanced automation and AI that can do like the things that I suck at, that I hate doing, coordinating 7 people's schedules to record a podcast, right? Super hard. If I can get a bot to do that for me, hallelujah, let's go do it. Do I want it investigating, like deeply into issues and incidents? I don't know how I feel about that. And I keep getting this, and Howard, maybe you hear this too, and I want to hear your take on it. When I say, well, it's going to make mistakes because it's non-deterministic, the response from the people selling it to me or trying to are always the same. It's always, well, humans do make those same mistakes too. It's like, yes, but humans can explain why they made that mistake, and they can be taught and not to make that mistake again. Like, well, so can AI. Like, but I don't.
I disagree with the statement that humans can be taught and will explain why they made the mistake.
Okay, fair enough.
So the reality is, like, what we're asking of AI when we ask it to explain is we're asking AI to kind of do what humans do, right? We don't know how the brain works, and we don't have a record of all of the thoughts we had that allowed us to make a decision, right? And an AI is a computer communicating with a computer that's in a room only it can see and communicate with, and giving that computer instruction and then interpreting the output. Right? Like, it's a computer asking a computer to do a thing. So when we ask it to explain, it kind of goes, well, I mean, I told myself to do this thing, and then myself said this thing in response. I don't really know why I did that, but you're right, I didn't do the thing you asked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're fundamentally trying to ask a similar question, and we've anthropomorphized the whole conversation. The truth is, if humans make a mistake at 70%, right? So they're correct 70%, they make a mistake at 30%. Something that's been baked into AI forever, right? I've been working with AI for more than a decade, right? A lot more computer vision than really any other field of AI, but still, the big complaint in computer vision was, well, look, it says it's only 75% confident. Right. When was the last time you talked to a human that gave you to the 10th of a decimal point their confidence level in a decision? Humans are either like, well, I'm 95% sure. Can you really quantify 95%? I'm 100% sure. I'm only 20% sure. We make it up all the time.
Yeah.
And when a machine does it, we're like, oh, this is not at all acceptable. So on one hand, we have to get over this. Machines are binary, because they're not. Not with AI. AI is not binary, right? But we also have to get over this attachment and anthropomorphizing them to humans. Can we use AI to raise the minimum level of acceptability and add humans on top of that? That's the conversation we should be having. What are you really good at? Where are you most mature within the maturity model of cyber? Keep your people doing that. Can AI help you in the places you're not mature and take cyber out and apply it to anything else, right? Are you really, really, really good at handling anomalies in your payment system, but you have 200,000 transactions a month that are still manually processed? Maybe you could have an AI handle the manual ones and really let your humans focus on the anomalies. Like, it's not an either or, but it needs to be a both. And a proper use of AI really does have potential. An improper use of AI leads to chaos and destruction.
I kind of feel like that would be a great place to end the podcast, but I have one more place. I'm gonna use that as a soundbite to promote this. But so let's do one last thing. And I figure let's give it 5 minutes. So I'll give you the bulk of the time on this, Howard. If you pull out that magical crystal ball and you say, okay, I ask you, give me the 5-year view, which is in our field, like really, really far out, of where we're going to be from a technology market perspective. And then tell me how that changes, how you're just, and I get it, beyond that is very fuzzy, but what's your inclination? Do we go through, do we do the loop again? Is AI break us out of the doom loop, the hamster wheel, the cycle? Give me your thoughts. And we'll end on that.
Ooh. So I think we're at a fork in the road right now. And the fork in the road, and I didn't create this, so I hope everybody's heard it, is Star Trek or Idiocracy. Right? And I don't think this is a macro question. I think this is a micro question. Right? I think the reality is all of us are making a decision today on the path we are choosing as individuals, as team leaders, and as organizations, as nations, and as a world on whether or not we prefer Idiocracy. I don't want to have to think about it. I just want to consume. I want to have my basic needs met. I want to sit at home and watch people fart on television. Or Star Trek, right? We're all working together for the greater good and the improvement of ourselves and humanity and every other species, right? And so I think that's the path, right? And so we have to make the choice. Are we going to be curious? Are we going to embrace? And are we going to expand our understanding of ourselves and our world and really focus on the things that bring us joy and improve the world? Or are we going to drive to the lowest common denominator and hope to make a bunch of money and pull the ripcord on the parachute before it all blows up in our faces? And so if I were to look 5 years in the future, I think we're going to see a lot of companies that see AI as a way to live out their sociopathic dreamscape of firing as many people as possible, right? And having robots run everything. And they're going to run it exactly the way that you get when you outsource to people who don't care about your product, right? Customer service is going to go to trash. Quality is going to go to trash. Retention is going to go to trash, right? Product quality is going to go to trash. Everything's going to look more and more and more like everything else because that's what AI does. It drives to the mean by default.
Yep.
And then you're going to have these companies that really are kind of the new Netflixes, the new Apples, right? The new Airbnbs, right? Disruptors that embrace it and improve humanity in small ways, medium ways, hopefully large ways. Right, that are in fact joyous to work at, where the minutia, the bureaucracy of work goes away, and instead it's small teams of really forward-working people working together as teams to create an amazing kind of product, solution, and culture that link together under larger and larger umbrellas to continue to do that, right? And I think it's a culture question probably more than anything, right? What is the goal that you have and what is the goal of the company? Can you be introspective? Can you accept it when someone says, don't do that, it's dumb? Or do you take it personal? And I think that's the question we all have to answer.
I hate that I'm going to say this out loud, but I think we already know the answer to this because we've been going down the Idiocracy path at full bore, and now we're finding new and exciting ways to go faster. I'd love to be optimistic about this, but I find myself longing for the days where I could be unreachable and my car didn't have 75 computers in it. Like it really, maybe it's just an age I'm reaching, or maybe it's just that things really like simpler really was better. And we haven't figured out what in the world this means for our society. But I think in cyber, it's going to continue to degrading to, I say degrading to the mean, right? There's going to be a rush to mediocrity. And I think we're seeing that right now. And we're going to be sold mediocrity as innovation because it'll cost less. maybe in the short term. I don't know.
So I have a question for you. If Jack Welch had never stood on stage and said, the CEO's responsibility is not to the employees, but to the shareholders, and shifted the way we thought about the role and responsibility of a company to its shareholders versus a company to its employees and to its customers, would we be having the same conversation about technology? Or rather than technology being a benefit just to the shareholders, would technology instead be a benefit to the customers and the employees? And would that have solved this entire problem?
I would like to think that I love Jack for everything except that. And I think that if he hadn't said it, somebody else would have.
Sure. I'm not saying it wasn't kind of an inevitability, but that shift absolutely occurred.
It did. It absolutely did.
And I think, like, I feel the same way you do about technology, but I think the problem isn't the technology. I think the problem is all of us that work in technology, we see the positive, we see the upside, we see the potential in what it could do to mankind, and then we're immediately faced with, but there's a lot more money to be made off the problem.
Yeah, the pharmaceutical dilemma. Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, well, can we find a way to end this on a positive note without declaring idiocracy and the end of civilization? Nah.
Yeah, man. It's easy. We will, in fact, have billion-dollar unicorn one-person companies because of AI. Well, that doesn't actually mean everyone should go start a unicorn. What it means is we have more power at our fingertips than we ever have before. And for the very first time, I will absolutely argue the power is absolutely in our hands to make this change. Every single one of us. If the collective makes the decision, the collective can, in fact, change it. AI gives us the power to disrupt these things. It's up to us to do it. We've never had that power before. Not since the French wheeled out the guillotine and overthrew the monarchy have we had this power.
Whoa.
Right?
All right.
There's no violence involved at all. That's the beauty of AI. That's the beauty of this. There is no violence that's required.
I don't know, man.
Do it.
I've seen Terminator. I'm not sure if there's no violence involved. I guess we'll find out. I guess we're going to find out. All right. That is a good place to end this. Howard, you have been an awesome guest. Thanks for giving all this time. And I'm sorry the AI tried to cut you off early. You know, we did get your opinions on this, folks. Thanks for sticking through 2 episodes. I think this has been a blast. Boy, that's insight. That's a lot of insight. I think we could probably keep going a little further, but I think this gives us a pretty good overview of where things stand and the potential ahead of us. James, Jim, always thanks for you guys for playing along and joining. Your insights are invaluable. Thank you, folks, for listening. This has been yet another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. We'll catch you later. Talk to you soon, and bye-bye. Cheers.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.